Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to your horoscope for the week of December 29, 2024. I am your astrologer, Nadia Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological week, without a doubt. Big moves happening in the sky now. Boy, is it a very special time. And it truly is so special now. Powerful energies are with us. And it is going to be this week that not only do we have a new moon in the sign of Capricorn, officially the second new moon in a calendar month, but we're also going to start a brand new year. And as soon as we do, Mercury leaves shadow. But I do think that the energy a lot of us are feeling that's very much on the surface is the upcoming second exact opposition of Mars and Pluto. And these two have been dancing in opposition. It is a key characteristic of the larger Mars retrograde season that we are now in the midst of. So I want to spend some time talking about this, and I'm actually going to start in the context of what's happening with two different celebrities right now. And this is because if you think back, it was not last week, but the week before, we ended that week with a very important activation that I spoke to of at that time. Uranus moving over the Mars-Saturn midpoint. Mars in the sign of Leo, having to do with celebrity. And Saturn in the sign of Pisces, having to do with films and music and the illusions that we weave. And I remember saying with Uranus, the planet of truth that feels like it comes out of nowhere, that's a game changer, that we are going to get some celebrity news that feels as if a lot of us are left thinking, wow, what do I really know? What is it that's real? I had no idea that that's what was really going on. But more importantly, as we're going to explore a couple of celebrity examples now of important news that came about over the last week or so. And I'll tell you, the things that I have come to see, I've come to learn along with a lot of people out there. It's raised some interesting questions about our own perceptions and how it is that we project so much onto celebrities. And I bring this up because I think that this is a big part of what the Mars opposite Pluto is meant to awaken in us. What this aspect is representing is us taking a very good look at ourselves and how it is not only that projection happens, but what it is that we feel we really want and what is the truth of that. It has to do with how we might be focusing in on certain people that we consider very bright lights, stars. And that's not just celebrities, but in our own lives as well. Certain people might get a whole lot of our attention, but we are having to look at where it is that we might be losing something of ourselves by looking in a particular direction instead of looking within. Pluto is in the sign of Aquarius, and the energy of Aquarius is an interesting one. It is one of a strong dichotomy. It's hyper individualistic, but also all about the collective. But it is also about mass media and the ways in which we have seen mass media be used. And there's this phrase called manufactured consent, and it's all oriented around how it is that we can be influenced into believing just about anything and how important the mass media is as part of that. Well, I think we've seen some important examples of that. Of course, now with social media, a lot of who has the power where, it's turned on its head, but really, has it been? I think that's part of the consideration a lot of us are having. Now, even though I'm talking about this in terms of these larger cultural examples, I want to say personally, I know that this is a time of stress for a lot of people. And a part of that stress has to do with your expectations about where you are, how you're perceived, and whether or not you think that where you are is where you are supposed to be. As much as that new moon in the sign of Capricorn brings with it an energy of ambition, it invites us to have a plan, take action, see it through to fruition. But it isn't just about the outcomes and what we might manifest, but it's about the self-respect that we garner and gain in the process. It's about keeping promises to ourselves that allows us the greatest gains. This is going to be an important focus, considering that Saturn is speaking in harmony with this new moon. So all of us are having our personal understandings about our goals and who we are and the respect that we desire. And we may think it's from others, but really it's from ourselves. And then we have the energy of Mars in Leo. And wherever Mars goes, it's like we're pouring so much of ourselves in that direction. And Leo has to do with what we want in our heart of hearts and what is it that we feel shines within us. And where we want recognition for that light, well, that is a type of respect as well. And so we may feel as if we are wanting that and aiming for that. But it can feel with Pluto that there are forces larger than ourselves that might just feel downright unfair. Now, even though I'm going to talk about a couple of cultural examples, I'm going to show you some of their charts as well so that we can understand and explore this, not just in terms of what this means for all of us and how these big energies are playing out with these people in their own lives, but also how we are perceiving it and what that says about us. I'm going to start with Blake Lively. And so for the last few months, the internet has not been very kind to Blake Lively. A lot of what she's done has been viewed under a lens of criticism and being out of touch and being a mean girl. And look, remember, I have to reiterate, we don't know these people, right? We don't know them personally. We can't say for sure. What we know is our perception of them. But how is our perception manufactured? It is manufactured by the information that we are exposed to. And that's what we think we know about these people, and we think we know some truth about them. But the reality can be much more nuanced and different. And so it was with Uranus moving over the midpoint of Mars and Saturn that an important illusion was cracked when Blake Lively filed a lawsuit, and it is very detailed. And it is detailed in terms of her own personal experiences with sexual harassment, but also in terms of the campaign that was waged against her to smear her, right? They're calling it a smear campaign. All of this ends up being so much of the illusions that we bought into, but illusions ultimately have truth in them. But the truth is not always what we think. The truth is what our perception is saying about us individually. And it is what we believe about ourselves and where we fall in the world and our relationships with them and who we think is better than us or equal to us or not as good as us that determines so much of how we interpret and see whatever might be happening. It's just that it plays out more in a macro level when we're looking at celebrities. Whenever I teach at Synchronicity University, it's always like these 5-week courses. And at the first class, I say, okay, here are our patrons for this class. And our patrons usually are of a few celebrities, sometimes 3, sometimes 2. But we will look at the charts of these specific celebrities in the context of what we might be learning as we go along week to week. And it was earlier this year when I taught a class called Many Happy Returns. And we looked at return charts. Lots of people know solar returns. There's lunar return charts, which is like a personal monthly horoscope. And then there's these larger returns like Jupiter return chart, Saturn return, and so on. You can find all those classes over at synchronicityuniversity.com. You'll find those links below. But having said that, during that class, all of this Blake Lively stuff first started popping up earlier this year. And that was when we had Blake Lively as our patron, or one of our patrons. And in the context of her being our patron, you know, one of the things the class was discussing was Saturn. Blake Lively has had Saturn opposing her moon. And the moon is something that we see very strongly aspected or placed in the charts of actors in particular. And the reason is because the moon represents emotional connections. We'll also see the energy of Cancer magnified under many actors' charts as well in one way or another, because it's the ability to connect with the collective consciousness. That's what the moon represents. The moon is the love of the people. And when someone who is in the public eye has an important aspect to their moon in their chart, it tends to speak to their relationship with the public itself, which is this, very important relationship that they'll have as part of their success, their public image itself. And so we saw that Saturn was opposing Blake Lively's moon. Now, this isn't only about feeling stress to her connection to the people, but oppositions of Saturn tend to play out in an interesting way, usually in terms of some power struggle, some power games that are played out. And it can feel like someone else, when Saturn is opposed, an important placement in your chart, that someone else is trying to be the boss of you. They're trying to gain power over you. And it feels especially ruthless when it is Pluto that is opposing. It is in these circumstances that it can feel downright unfair. With Pluto, there's betrayal. But with Saturn, there's the system, there's the structure that can feel bigger than oneself. And so while lots of stuff was happening behind the scenes before the movie officially launched, well, we had, going all the way back to the first part of 2023, Saturn began to oppose some important placements in Virgo for Blake Lively. And it was over the spring and summer as Saturn began to perfect its opposition to the moon in her chart that all this controversy and this sense of an assault on her public image started to transpire. And now here we are, right? We are on a different page with Uranus activating the midpoint of Mars and Saturn. That is a very powerful technique that we use in prediction, and I explained that in more length in the video of not last week but the week before. You may want to review that again. But now, as that opposition to her moon starts to ease more and more, and as Mars moves over her part of fortune and her Lilith, a key characteristic in her chart, a key characteristic for her in terms of her experience of the Mars-Pluto opposition that's going to have its second exact perfect moment taking place this Friday. Well, this is when so much comes out. And I'm sure that this is something that she has done to empower herself. It's been an awakening of sorts to her own understanding of how it is that she's going to turn things around. The empowerment part, the part of her that thinks you can't do this to me, is how her Lilith is being activated here. And then her part of fortune is how so many people are coming out in support of her, as so many details, and she's been quite meticulous, well documented with these details, are coming forward now. And a lot of people personally are asking ourselves, how can we believe whatever it is that we're coming across, whatever information, whatever video? There are so many ways to interpret any given thing. But some of the ways we might interpret actually create harm or feed into a continued sense of someone not being very fair to us. And we end up participating in that, someone else's game. It is now Blake Lively who's trying to turn things around. And that is showing up very powerfully under the light of this Mars-Pluto opposition. Now, the other example, one of my favorite examples, someone who's also been a patron of ours over at Synchronicity University, is Daddy Yankee. I don't know if you know anything about me. If you do, you know I'm a bit of a super fan of Daddy Yankee. He's had some interesting developments take place in his life, and if you look at his chart, it is obvious that something's got to give, something's got to change for this guy. This Mars retrograde season has been moving mighty close to his moon in Leo. However, we don't have his exact birth time. If he was born earlier in the morning, at the start of the day, if he was born just after midnight, we would have this Mars retrograde season happening right on top of his moon with precision, which I think is a likely scenario. A lot of you have reached out to me because Daddy Yankee announced his divorce. I love you guys so much for thinking of me first. You hear something of Daddy Yankee, you're like, what does Nadia think about this? So I send you so much love for that. And it was interesting the way that it was positioned, right? Daddy Yankee released a statement and he said, my wife has filed for divorce and I'm going to respect it. And that's it, pretty much. He said in a very nice, beautiful, poetic way. And then days later, like literal days later, we had Daddy Yankee filing suit saying that his wife has stolen $100 million from him, and he's making all kinds of accusations. But not only that, he is and had very recently, earlier this week, his court case, his first court case, and he showed up at court and she did as well. Now, they've got an interesting history here. Just to give you a bit of background, they've been together for 30 years now. They've been married for like almost 30 years and knew each other much longer. And he has many, many times over the years said that he is the face of the work that they do. He's the creative, but it really is her that has made so much possible, that she is the business side of things. And she's done interviews, not too many, but the interviews that she's done have always been very focused on business because that's what she knows. She runs the company El Cartel Records. Now, it was last year that some text messages were leaked between Daddy Yankee and his wife. And basically, she is saying that we've been together for over 30 years. And I know that you want to start this brand new chapter, but now you're asking me to be somebody different. You're asking me to play a different role. And we have been a certain way for so many years, and this doesn't feel very fair to me, is the gist of some of the things that she was saying. Well, Daddy Yankee has had Saturn squaring his Neptune as of this year. Now, next year, Neptune and Saturn are going to dip into the sign of Aries. They will be meeting Daddy Yankee's Venus, and that is set to be an important moment as part of most likely the dissolution of his marriage. But right now, what's happening is that the North Node is right on that Venus as well, but Saturn is moving into that much more an exact square to his Neptune. I look at these, I look at all that Neptune, I look at that square of Saturn, and with Neptune, there can be scandal, but we also don't know what's real. And that certainly can be true for the observer, but it can also be true for the person in the middle of it. When we are in the midst of a Neptune transit, we can convince ourselves of some things that may not necessarily be the case. And I'm not saying that that's the case here. I'm just saying that with this opposition of Mars and Pluto, there can be feelings of betrayal. There can be a lot of intensity for people, but there can also be manipulation. And sometimes it feels like that manipulation comes from outside of us. Sometimes it's us perpetuating it and enjoying it as well. So if the Blake Lively situation has taught us anything, it is to be measured in all of our perceptions of celebrities and their activities in particular, because very often there are a lot of other things happening underneath the surface. This is especially true with all the Piscean energy at play right now, not only for the collective, as Neptune has been hanging out at anaretic degrees, hanging out at the very end of the sign of Pisces, magnified in energy that much more, but certainly in the chart of this individual person whose art I am a very, very big fan of, it is true, whose art I love, who's empowered me, and his music has come into my life at moments when I really needed it. His music has been there anytime my life has gone through a major transformation. Over the last 14 years or so, it's strengthened me, and I'm grateful to him for that. But as a person, we don't know this person. And as a person, there's a lot going on in how this Mars-Pluto opposition is playing out in his chart now. And so now we come back to you as part of your individual journey. This Mars opposite Pluto is a stress. It is a sense of unfairness, of betrayal, of power struggles, of power games. And it can feel like there's a power that's way bigger than ourselves that we're having to grapple with. But it can also be us getting in the trenches of a game. And as a game is presented, we decide, no, we're going to take on the part of Pluto. We're not going to let anybody else be Pluto. We're going to be Pluto. And a lot of this can happen very unconsciously. But there are ways to do this that can be healthy. For example, the transformative and authentic quality of Pluto says, stay honest with yourself. Stay true to yourself. And when you do that, you just might find the power within your heart, within your own light, which is what Mars in Leo represents. But the thing is, the game itself can be very alluring. And when we see other people playing games and we know we can, or we think we can get a one-up on them, well, especially where it is that we've been playing in those spaces, those sandboxes, even if it was subtly so, with this opposition, it can feel that much easier. It can just be the natural momentum to get into the trenches that much more easily without necessarily thinking about it. With Pluto, emotions can run very strong, but that's exactly when there's the real opportunity to decide who you are, who it is that you are going to behave as, and what that's going to mean for you going forward from here. What I'm also noticing is that with Mars opposite Pluto, just a lot of people are feeling tired or run down or feeling like there's a lot on them. And whatever it is that you need to do to practice self-care to replenish your own reserves, it's a good idea to tap into the power of those activities now that remind you of that endless stream of light and purpose within you. That can help you to navigate this time as well, because I know a lot of people are feeling like there's a lot of pressure. Some of that might be from outside of us or within us, but we can harness it to in some way learn about ourselves and move towards doing the work that a higher vision for ourselves, fulfilling our higher potential, just might entail. On Thursday, Mercury leaves shadow. Once Mercury leaves shadow, Mercury is on brand new territory. This is brand new ground. We are in the clear and the larger Mercury retrograde season is over. Where Mercury is in the first days of this week is where Mercury was in the last days of November. All the way back then is when Mercury first went retro. So Mercury went retro, stopped, went direct, and now as he reaches this point, this is when we are likely to see what was taking place for us in the last days of November differently in some way as part of our own personal unique journeys. This entire Mercury retrograde season took place with Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius. And what is truth, not just more personally in the ways that I've been talking about so far, but also what is universal truth? What is spiritual truth? What is philosophical truth? This tends to be of interest to the energy of Sagittarius. And our own way of thinking about these things in our own unique journey, well, we just might be seeing it differently in some way now. The stuff that got us all riled up that we were so certain of, now we see differently in some way. And it's helping us to find a new understanding within ourselves about what we really believe and why. But as Mars reaches the end of shadow, it is likely going to be a moment when a lot of us feel a deeper sense of illumination and understanding within, a deeper sense of what it is that's going to be true for us going forward from here, how we're going to orient ourselves around the world. Now, if you are somebody who, in a larger sense, because the energy of Sagittarius has to do with legal, political, and higher education institutions, if you've had any dealings with these particular institutions now, well, it could be a whole other perspective that finds us, especially in relation to what was taking place back towards the end of November, that can make a big difference in terms of your understanding how to best move forward from here. On Thursday, Venus moves into the sign of Pisces, and it is here that the ancients believed Venus really, really loves to be. It is here that Venus is able to bring forward her very best, her lush, her happiness, her giving best, as is the case with this placement. But Venus in Pisces considers love and imagination as strengthening each other. And it thinks of love as giving, of sacrifice, of a fairy tale, and doesn't want anything less than that. In our own journeys, we might find ourselves looking at where we are in love and wanting to feel some of that sense of being swept up, being in a moment, being with someone who feels like they're able to weave magic or a fantasy. Now, that's a lot to ask of anybody. I would also say that love happens in the in-between spaces, especially when two people are first getting to know each other. It isn't that you have to be with each other all the time, even though Venus in Pisces wants to like dive into another person like they are a swimming pool and just be in there. And that might be some examples of love that we see celebrated over the next few weeks. But Venus in Pisces also invites us to look at where it is that those spaces in between, when you're getting to know somebody and you first meet and, you allow a day of quiet, of silence. Well, it's in those very spaces when that person isn't in front of you all the time, every single moment, that love can actually grow. And that's part of what Venus in Pisces invites us to consider. Even though on one level, it can feel like that's the last thing a lot of us are going to be wanting. On another level, that's where the power is with this, with allowing space for imagination to come in. And might that imagination be part of what you could create something with another? Well, the potential actually grows that much more in those very spaces by imagining it. Now, where it comes to beauty statements, trends that we might be seeing, I'm seeing a lot of flowy fabrics, chiffon, see-through layers. That tends to be what people are especially fascinated with when we have Venus moving through the sign of Pisces. There is another very important part of this energy that I'm going to delve into a lot more once we move towards the end of January. And that's because at the end of January, Venus will go into shadow while still in the sign of Pisces. And the larger Venus retrograde season is going to begin with Venus dipping in and out of the sign of Aries as well. And this whole idea of what is healthy sacrifice, what is not, where is it that we are sacrificing too much? An understanding of what fairy tale we should not compromise on, what we deserve, and where it is that we are just not seeing things accurately, to the point of not being honest with ourselves, to the point where it might be hurting us. Well, these explorations are going to be an important characteristic of the upcoming Venus retrograde season. It's a really big deal. I mean, I talked about Mars retrograde season earlier in this video, and I was saying how with Mars retrograde, we've got that going all the way to the beginning of May. And it's almost like Venus jumps into the mix, right? Venus is like, hey, let me join you, Mars. and ends up doing her shadow and then retro and then shadow thing, and leaves shadow in May as well. So in a lot of ways, we are looking at love more deeply and differently, where Mars is the physical desire, attraction that is part of love. It is Venus that looks at how we attract, what we believe we deserve, and how it is that we position ourselves to have that show up for us. That's going to be an important consideration that is going to define much of 2025 for a lot of us out there. But in many ways, because this week we start 2025, and because this week Mars steps into the sign of Pisces, well, it is here that we find ourselves beginning a journey of understanding the emotional depths and desires of what our imaginations are showing us of what it is that we're really wanting in love. Now, finally, the new moon energy. I know I touched on it earlier in this video, but I want to say that we do end the week with the sun perfecting its connection to Saturn. And because we have that new moon at the start of the week, also speaking with Saturn, but I want you to consider that the sun meeting the moon is the new moon. The fact that we do have that new moon connected to Saturn, but that perfect connection with the sun doesn't happen until the end of the week. It tells you something about how strong the connection not just is, but really isn't under the light of that new moon energy that we start the week with. And so, yes, there is that sense of motivation. There is that sense of opportunity, but we are absolutely having to cultivate it. This is Saturn after all. And Saturn invites us to do the right thing. And in doing the right thing, we cultivate a momentum that can pay off in stable gains. That is the promise of the new moon. And we start to see how that promise might come together for us as part of our own unique journeys as we get to the very end of the week with Saturn sextile the sun. What I love about this week for us, there's so much here. It's a powerful and meaningful astrological moment. Well, I'm going to say, it's not that I love it, but I think it's really important, is the Mars-Pluto opposition. This is a key characteristic of the larger Mars retrograde season that we are in the midst of. And the important thing to remember is that whatever we think about celebrities and what's happening in their life, the reality could be something very different. Things can be presented to us, especially as a collective, in all kinds of ways. But there tend to be nuances and emotions and feelings that are underneath whatever it is that might be presented to us that determines so much of what we believe. It is now that we are in some way being invited to get honest with ourselves about where that might be playing out. And it's not just on a collective level, but I think it's also more personally as well in our own lives. Where is it that we're not being honest with us? Where is it that we are deciding we're going to perceive things a certain way? We're going to go about it a certain way, rooted in a belief that ultimately is not about an objective situation and what it is showing us, but rather our own stuff, our own expectations, our own neuroses even at times as well. That opposition of Mars and Pluto, for some, it's going to feel stressful. I'm sorry to say it does happen, and especially where other people become involved in that stress, where it feels like that stress is coming from outside of us, well, that's when it can really feel like the strong pressure is there. But there's also a tremendous amount of promise here as well, to get honest with ourselves of what it is to be authentically who it is that we are. Where is it that we are going to rest our power within our hearts, within our souls, so much so that our light is able to come forward that much more readily. And the notion and idea of respect itself, what is that going to look like for us in our own unique journeys? And from whom should we expect it and demand it? Certainly from ourselves, our own selves in particular. It is going to be this opposition that might be felt physically by some people, so it becomes really important to practice self-care at this time. But it is also important to remember that we really are just learning. And Mars really is still retro. And so whatever's happening at this opposition, we just might see it differently once it is that Mars opposes Pluto for the third and final time towards the end of April. That is when whatever's happening now, we just might see it differently, including what it is that is our unique shine, what it is that we want acknowledged in other people. Because sometimes we want things, but it's for a whole other reason than we actually think we do. Like we want to be respected, but it's because we're wanting recognition, to know that we exist, to know that we matter. Well, once it is that you know you matter to yourself, then why is it that you want that shine, you want that attention, you want that light? It becomes a very different motivation, a different way to embrace that journey. But it's not just that, of course. It's about you and what it is that your heart is calling you to do, and where it is that honoring the voice of love and wisdom within is a powerful way to align with meaningful authenticity. What a powerful understanding to have as we start a brand new year together. Thank you so much for watching. What do you love about this week? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading you guys, and to prove it to you, here's some of my most recent favorite comments. Thank you to everybody who likes, who comments, who subscribes, who shares, who thumbs up. All of it means so much. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. And of course, if you want to know how all this wonderful stuff this week speaks to you and your sign, log on to NadiaShawSuperstars.com, where you get expanded exclusive video scopes for as low as just $3 a month with choose your membership rate. Higher tiers get you things like all access passes to Synchronicity University events, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space at NadiaShawSuperstars.com. Links are in the description below. Consultations are in effect. They are afoot. They are taking place in person, but also a limited number of consultations are taking place on Zoom as well. So I'll tell you, recently I had, back in the fall, this flurry of superstars who had their consultations due. And I found the experience really rewarding. And so I decided to open up my schedule and to offer it to those on the waiting list, to those superstars, to see, if you want a consultation, reach out to me. And it has been really insightful to me to have these moments. Now, of course, whenever I'm doing a consultation, I'm there in service of this person, right? It is whatever they want it to be. Sometimes people really like to just talk and have a conversation. Sometimes people just like to sit back and listen. Sometimes people come with a lot of excitement and joy, and sometimes people come because they're really going through a very hard time right now. But regardless of what brings them to that moment, a few things have been very obvious to me. And one is that there's something about me being there in that moment of their lives and of a life that reminds me and connects me to purpose. And so that's been a big part of my motivation. It's been an awakening, actually, to be really honest, about how and what I'm doing and why. And that connection to purpose is what now is leading me to open up my schedule a little more for just a little time for now, because I had a small number of clients that I saw regularly over the years, but now seeing brand new people that I haven't seen before, it's a new experience for me. But it's, like I said, it's been personally very rewarding. And the feedback I've been getting, and my goodness, do people, no matter what they're going through, they have so much love when they come to that moment. And for me to be able to see that in them, it's been very healing for me. So it's really reminded me that as I'm sitting here and I talk into my camera or talking to my computer, and that it can feel like that's what I do, there are real people behind every view count, every thumbs up, right? Every comment, there's an actual person there. who is feeling things, who is experiencing their lives and all of its nuance and complexities and joy and questions and fears. And to know that my work is reaching people on that level has it's been nothing short of illuminating. It's been life-changing, really. And so I thank you to all of you who have already trusted me and reached out for a reading, who've had a consultation with me. And those of you who might want one as well, you can check that out. There should be a link below. It's on my website. Now, there are in-person consultations coming up as well. And I'm super excited about this. In-person consultations are going to be taking place in Tokyo and in Brisbane. And so for now, there is a day reserved for that. So it is going to be in a couple days that in this week that I'm going to head to Tokyo. And so it's not going to be this Monday, but next Monday that I will be doing readings in Tokyo in person, and then 2 weeks later in Brisbane before the big conference that's set to take place, which I'll tell you about in just a second. And so if you are in one of these cities and you would like to meet, now we could meet for an official consultation. I'm very happy to do that. If you want to just meet for a hug, for a moment, for a coffee, for a stroll or something, I'm super happy to do that as well. One of the wonderful things about what I do in my work is that everywhere I go in the world, there's someone who wants to meet me, someone who's there who lets me know that my work has been meaningful to them. And I think that is such a privilege. That is such a great joy of the work that I do. So thank you so much for that. And yes, you reaching out, even if it's just for a coffee or a hug, I'm super happy to do that as well. So please do reach out. Use the contact form on my site. Check out the page of consultations. Now, when you go to that page, you'll see me, but you'll also see Andy of Wise Ass Astrology. Yes, Andy of Wise Ass Astrology does readings as well. Now, he does a choose your consultation rate. So he likes to make it really flexible in terms of how much you pay. And so with him, you can check that out. Maybe that's more your thing, getting a reading with him, or maybe you want to learn more about getting a reading with me. But whatever it is, and the fact that just you're here watching this, all of it, it means so much to me. And if I am in your city, and even if you just wanted to meet and hug, that would be great as well. I think it's the third time I'm saying that. Yeah, I like to hang out. I like to learn about places through the eyes of others, and it helps me to know myself differently and better as well. So check that out. There are in-person consultations coming up, and there are also online consultations, a limited number that are going to be available in February for now. And then I'll see how that goes and how that feels. And then, maybe open up maybe in March as well. We'll see. But I'll be here on YouTube, certainly as we go along week to week. And I'm looking forward to that. And thank you. Thank you to all of you who've reached out over the years, asking about a reading, wanting a personal consultation. And so now here we are. Here's a chance. And thank you for your interest and the trust that you've shown in my works. I'm grateful for all of it. Thank you. Synchronicity University has some absolutely incredible programs. I kid you not, absolutely amazing programs that are starting this week. And so as we start this week, you have literal just days before the end of December to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class to learn from these amazing astrologers. Only at synchronicityuniversity.com you choose your tuition rate. And I'm going to start with the one and only Maurice Fernandez. Maurice is one of the world's leading evolutionary astrologers. He certainly stands out as someone who has and continues to make a contribution and reach people who absolutely love his work as a leading, really on the world stage as an evolutionary astrologer. We are so fortunate to have him come to Synchronicity University as part of his own 5-week course. And this 5-week course is going to help you to look at the different things that are happening in 2025 and how to approach them from an evolutionary astrology perspective, how to understand them as part of your own growth, as part of your journey towards greater love and greater wisdom and your embodiment of that, as part of your awakening as to what it is that the soul desires to do with this lifetime, which is a big part of what motivates and what centers evolutionary astrology. And Maurice is a master at it. This is a class that you really don't want to miss because there is nowhere else in the world that you are going to learn from Maurice at this low a rate. A full 5-week course with the one and only Maurice Fernandez. And as you begin this week, you've got just a couple of days left to choose your tuition rate. So it is just the first 3 days of this week. After that, choose your tuition rate isn't happening, but you can still purchase the classes at their normal rate of $35 a class. All of this at synchronicityuniversity.com. I hope you'll check that out. He is so special. I'm looking forward to his course. Links are in the description below. Synchronicity University presents the one and only Sabrina Monarch teaching the Akashic Records. This is so exciting, a topic that I know so many of you are going to love. The Akashic Records are considered a source of all the wisdom that ever existed. It has to do with your soul's journey, all of your past lives, and where it is that your soul is heading in terms of your future lives as well. And Sabrina talked about the Akashic Records at length in the interview that I did with her recently that you can now find up on my YouTube channel. But you get to learn from Sabrina a 5-week course on the Akashic Records. And for as low as just $5 a class for just a few days more, as you choose your tuition rate until the end of December only. And so you can see here, it is going to be Sabrina that's going to cover so much of your understanding of how to tap into the Akashic Records, how you can bring them forward, their knowledge, their wisdom for yourself, for others, and how the astrology of 2025 can help you in that endeavor. This is a way to wake up the soul in your astrological practice, to make it an experience that is transcendent and deeply meaningful to you and the people that you might serve with your astrology. She's the perfect person to teach this at synchronicityuniversity.com. You've got a few days left to sign up now. Links are in the description below. Synchronicity University presents the one and only Key Tyler. Key is coming to Synchronicity University with her own 5-week course, and I love the love that she brings to her practice. She's a student of Maurice Fernandez, and she's going to be teaching on helping us to understand the elements and how they connect to our senses. Now, this is a powerful way to root us in, to connect us to this year of 2025. And awakening of the senses is a powerful way to make this life that much more your own. So Key has some wonderful ways of helping us to understand the elements of fire, water, earth, air, and ether, and how it is that your senses connect to these. And knowing this makes you able to connect with the chart that much more deeply of yourself and to those you might serve with your practice. It helps you to have a depth of appreciation of how the planets and the signs speak through you. They are experienced through you in a very real way. This is a course that I think a lot of people are going to get so much out of. Key Tyler has been on my channel before. She brings so much love, so much wisdom as an evolutionary astrologer to her perspectives. And I think that so many people are going to benefit from this. So you've got a little time left to choose your tuition rate, as always, just $5 a class to learn from Key Tyler at synchronicityuniversity.com. Links are in the description below. Synchronicity University presents an absolutely incredible January 2024 speaker series. And we've got these incredible astrologers where you've got just a few days left to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class to learn from these incredible speakers. I'm going to start with Natalie Levin. Natalie is one of my most favorite astrologers out there. I love the honesty, the love, the play that she brings to her practice and how she presents astrology. And Natalie is going to help us to bring an awareness of Muse and how Muse helps you in terms of doing your astrology readings and so much more. Anj Noor is somebody that I so enjoyed meeting and getting to know. She has got so much charisma. This woman is so dynamic, and I think so many people are going to enjoy her class. And she's going to help us to see the 12 signs, each of them. She's going to go through them so that we can see their higher potential. We talk about how each of the signs and planets has a lower frequency and a higher frequency. She's going to help you to understand that much more deeply as part of maximizing the potential of the 12 signs and as they show up in your life. Vanessa Guy, I love this woman so much. I'll tell you, I love her astrology. I followed her for a while. She is the force behind Astro Woke. And Vanessa presents astrology and delivers astrology in ASL, which is American Sign Language. And she is going to have an English language interpreter with her that's going to help us to understand the North Node in 2025 and how to navigate this year. But it's our very first class that we are presenting in ASL, and I'm so looking forward to it. I think it's going to be just a wonderful presentation. I already know how good she is as an astrologer because I follow her online, but to have her at Synchronicity University, I think is so special. And I'm really looking forward to this class, not only for what she's going to teach us, that's going to be important and wonderful and enlightening, but also because it is the first ASL class. I think that is so special as well. Vivia D'Souza presents Sigil Magic, a pathway to wealth for 2025. I love sigils. I use sigils as well in my own personal practice as well. And sigils are magical symbols, essentially. And the foundational text to understanding sigils can be found in the Picatrix, which is arguably the foundational text to Western occult practice. It is going to be Vivia that's going to help you to understand this, to tap into their power towards your own manifestations and what you're hoping to align with for 2025. And Catherine O'Connell is going to be presenting Rewilding Saturn, helping us to understand Saturn from a different perspective. We think of Saturn as having to do with structure and having to do with, the teacher and the taskmaster, but really Saturn's got a wild side that we can tap into as well as part of making the most of our Saturn placement. And it is going to be Catherine that's going to help us to understand that from her own clinical psychology and astrological perspective in a way that I'm sure is going to be enlightening. And so you can see here, we've got an incredible group. It happens to be 5 women this time, 5 women coming to Synchronicity University as part of the January 2025 speaker series only at synchronicityuniversity.com. You have got just the days at the beginning of this week to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class. Links are in the description below. And thank you. Thank you so much for this moment with you. Thank you for your trust. I'm so grateful for it. And stay tuned for the short horoscopes that are coming up right now. The next time I see you here on my YouTube channel is going to be, well, at least with the weekly videos, it'll be in Tokyo. So I'm looking forward to that. But I'm going to try to get a video up, likely with my friend Michael Barwick, so that we can understand the very big and important astrology of 2025. And once again, as I said in the first part of this video, I have asked Euridia to help me out with the monthly horoscopes because the yearly horoscopes have been taking a lot of time. I literally end up recording for about an hour for each sign, and then I edit out a bunch of stuff, so each video ends up being like 30 minutes on the low end, 45, even 50 minutes on the high end, depending on the sign. But especially this year, there's just so much to cover. I look at Venus, I look at Mars and their retrogrades. I look at Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus changing signs. and we go through the eclipses as well. Now, even though a lot of these placements are going to have their own like 30 to 45-minute video when I do their special horoscopes as well, I wanted to be sure to talk about really the important parts of understanding these larger transits for you and your sign for each of these 12 videos. So be on the lookout for that. Those should launch this week. And of course, they'll be in the Superstar space as well. Monthly horoscopes that'll be done by Eurydia. They'll be available 24-hour early access for the Superstars as usual over in the Superstar space at NadiaShowSuperstars.com. But you can also, of course, see that here on my YouTube channel when they are published as well. I hope you will, as always, give her a warm welcome to her horoscopes. She brings so much love. I love Eurydia so much. I love her astrology. So I'm really grateful that she's going to be helping me out for the monthly horoscopes this month. And thank you. Just thank you. Again, stay tuned for weekly horoscopes. I hope that you will love those also. Thank you for watching. It'll be a great week. Enjoy. A key characteristic of the larger Mars retrograde season that we are fully in the midst of is this Friday's Mars opposite Pluto. Pluto represents forces that feel big, larger than ourselves, and even unfair. This can sometimes speak to where it is that we feel as if we're in a power struggle or a power game and we feel like we just can't win. With Mars opposite, these feelings can be that much more magnified, especially where it is that there's something we really want to do, but it stands at contrast to what is good for others or for more people. It's about the collective being a force that maybe isn't very nice, especially where it comes to those who have a conviction that there's something within them that they desire to shine, that they desire to have seen, and yet there's a larger, perhaps even societal pressure to be different or to do different. Now, sometimes these are pressures that we place on ourselves. It's, the what you should do, who you should be, that can feel magnified. But this can also be real external circumstances that feel downright unfair. Those power struggles can feel downright exhausting at a time like this, and where it is that they take you away from or deplete you from that calm that comes from living from a place of heart, a heart-centered truth, well, that's really when it can feel like your energy stores just deplete very quickly. We cannot please other people. But what we can do is aim to find peace within ourselves, pleasing ourselves enough so that we bring the kind of energy that gives other people permission to do the same in their own lives as well. For the collective, Leo represents the celebrity, the brightest stars among us. And with a Pluto opposition, we just might see how it is that there are forces that affect even them. How unfair, whether it is the larger public or maybe some power struggle that they found themselves in. Well, the truth of that is revealed now, and it seems downright messy. The key to navigating this time is to understand what authentic power is going to be for us, what positive changes we can embrace, and not give energy to those things that we just don't have any power over at this time. Who we should be, who we could have been, who we would have been are wasted energies. Instead, be inspired that there's so much more to learn and there's so many more pathways to be a more authentic and more version of yourself. Now, what area of life some of these power struggles, power games, but invitations to claim your power to the best of your ability take place? Well, a lot of that depends on your sun, moon, and rising sign. You want to take all three into consideration and then synthesize the information to make it unique to you. Of course, there's lots more horoscopes over on my YouTube channel, and I even created special horoscopes for the Mars retrograde season where I talk about this larger trend at play right now in detail for each sign, and you can download that at NadiaShaw.com. Aries, romance, flirtation, and what the heart wants in every area of life. Can you have it or not? Well, it's going to feel hard to be able to embrace, whether it is you have your eye on someone or you're dating someone. That's where things can feel especially frustrating, but it does just represent a moment. There might also be a very strong pull, a strong passion towards another. For all that, though, you are invited to awaken your creative force within and use it to go in the direction you desire to go next. Taurus, home, your past, your living situation, and your family of origin. It's hard to find peace at home with energies like these. It can feel as if there are these larger forces that are disturbing your peace. And where it comes to your living situation, that sense of turmoil can feel really uncomfortable. But for all that, this might not be showing up with your living situation. It might have a lot more to do with your understanding of the past. You are having to face some really deep feelings around what took place before. But ultimately, this is necessary. It's like a purifying rite of passage. Once it is that you face what it is that you no longer have any power over rooted in your past, you're able to forgive enough to move forward into a more empowered future. Gemini, siblings, cousins, neighbors, these people might be filled with drama or demands right about now, or maybe they're just doing things that you feel you have no power over, and it may or may not affect you personally, but if it is affecting you personally, boy, can it be disturbing your peace right about now. It is also here that we find communication, conversations of all kinds, and if ever there was a time when words could really hurt, gossip could feel like the thing that changes everything, not just your feelings around a given situation, but practical manifestations. It certainly is this. Cancer, money you earn, money you spend, self-love, self-esteem. Where it comes to money, whether it is how you are earning it or how you are spending it, there is a big moment of truth here that's going to invite you to get honest with yourself about how you feel about how you're going about things. Now, outside of that, there might be a desire to really empower yourself financially now that could have you making calculations that lend themselves to strategic moves. Empowered self-esteem is part of what makes you feel that much stronger now. Leo, identity, who you know yourself to be, and priorities, what matters to you most and first. You owning a sense of self, your power can be very much on the surface, but if anybody's likely to get in a power struggle right about now, it is you, and I'm so sorry to say. Now, whether that is with an established partner, business or personal, or whether it feels as if it's even bigger than that, whatever it is that feels like it's coming at you, it is you now that is invited to understand that fire within and to focus your efforts in a way that's actually going to be effective. You have tremendous creative energy available to you right at your fingertips. Direct it wisely, and this will be a time that will redefine you in stronger terms in the best possible sense. Virgo, soul, psyche, spirit is feeling like there's a lot of activity there. Sleep might be hard to come by under this energy, but it's also inviting you to tap into the power of imagination, to consider healthy karmic closures now, even if they feel hard. And with this energy, they may feel downright difficult. And yet that is the promise of this time, to make healthy closure so that you can embrace that much more an exciting future. It's like you feel that you have so much more yet to do in this lifetime, but you also might be feeling tired. Practice self-care, be absolutely diligent with it, and you'll be able to glimpse that much more promise going forward from here. Libra, friendships and group dynamics are just downright complicated right about now, and you might find yourself getting into power struggles or power games on that front. In particular, it might be you that's representing a group in some way, and that can be part of the stress that you're feeling that much more, being held responsible for what other people are doing. doing. Now, that can also be in terms of the friends in your life and feeling responsible for the choices that they are making. A friend in particular might feel downright draining of your energy. Now, it is up to you to practice self-care and to stay connected to the higher hopes and wishes for your life to give you that much more energy to move forward. Scorpio, if anybody is going to find this a time that is redefining, it certainly is you. Mars is your ancient ruling planet. Pluto is your modern ruling planet. And it is as if the older parts of you and who you used to be are in some way in contrast to whom it is that you are becoming or desire to become. Either way, there's profound healing here in looking at the past, but knowing that you no longer live there. When I tell you that what you learn about yourself is likely to stay with you for the rest of your life, well, make no mistake, it is that consequential a time in your life. Sagittarius, some will experience this practically in terms of higher education, legal matters, or immigration and citizenship matters. Others, though, might experience this more personally, having to do with the beliefs that guide your life and help you to make sense of the world. This is an energy of some challenge and of dealing with forces that feel larger than yourself. If you're involved in one of these practical matters in particular, you might find yourself involved in power struggles or power games that can have you feeling like certain systems are not fair. I'm so sorry to say that. However, what we do get here is you being willing to take action and summoning courage to decide on the next best steps for you, and more personally, getting honest with yourself so that you tap into beliefs that not only guide your life, but actually serve the direction you desire to go in next. Capricorn, more personally, this has to do with transformation, regeneration, and looking at what power is going to mean to you now and going forward from here. But many Capricorns might experience this energy more practically, having to do with your relationship with financial institutions, loans, grants, credits, and benefits you qualify for. And that's where things get tricky, where it feels as if what you are wanting or what you are needing is not in your hands and that you only have so much power, or you're having to go back and forth with one of these institutions in a way that doesn't feel fair. And this can have you feeling especially vulnerable. For all that, though, there's a real understanding of how strong you are, but also how wealthy you are, however it is that you might define that. Whatever needs to happen, let it. Energy like this says that the money you need is there. You're just navigating spiritual lessons along the way. Aquarius, partnership and love is a big focus here. You are looking at where you are in love and how you feel about it, and likely pouring your energy towards another person, whether it is someone that you desire, you have your eye on, who's a fantasy, or maybe it is an established bond. There can be tension. It might feel tricky. Now, for some, it just might be factors that you have no control over and you're just having to accept it, but staying strong together. For others, though, it is going to be within the dynamic itself that things feel messy or just downright not fair. It's up to you to decide how to navigate this, but know that however it is that a circumstance is looking to you now, you just might see it differently once we navigate into the spring of 2025. That's when whatever's happening now will be seen in a whole new light and you feel that much more ready to make a choice. Pisces, your work life, your daily life, and your health and how well you take care of you. Ultimately, Mars is meant to be a source of empowerment. But first, you may need to recognize what isn't working in order to get to that place. Now, drama, outbursts are all possible with those clients, customers, coworkers, and immediate supervisors in your life. You are realizing what power you have over these people and what you don't. At the same time, though, practicing self-care is going to reveal itself to be incredibly important for you. If you are one of the rare Pisceans who has a health issue arise now, there are definitely solutions. You will find them and move towards a stronger state of being. Keep in mind, gambling, not the thing you want to do right about now. That's where it really feels as if there are strong forces not necessarily on your side. Trust yourself, trust, joy, and you'll find yourself a winner. Thank you for watching. It'll be a great week. Enjoy.